Hey, what's up, lifewithoutpants here with another video, and in today's video we're going to go over a few league launch starter tips for you, just in case maybe it's your first league, or there's a few people in the Twitch chat that have been having their first league, the last league, and they didn't know a few of these tips and tricks. So we're going to go over some campaign stuff, we're going to go over some early mapping stuff, all these things really useful, especially if you're new to the game. So I'm going to talk mainly about vendor recipes or tips and tricks to help you through those things. If you want to know how to read zones or how to, how to make sure you're going the right way on the ledge, or which order should I take the bandits in, that kind of stuff, then I recently saw a really good video from Lolcohol on reading zones. I learned stuff from it. I've raced through this game so many times. I've gone through this game so many times, and I still learned stuff from it as well, like the diamond formation of Dweller of the Deep, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to link that in the description below. I highly recommend it. I think everybody should watch it. It was really informative and well done, so props to him. And let's get into our first leveling techniques. Alright, let's talk about movement speed boots. Now, there's a way to deterministically make a pair of movement speed boots. So you can go to any vendor and sell them a pair of boots, any type of normal magic or rare boots. I don't think it works with unique boots, but the base type is kept, so this will always be ringmail boots you get back, a quicksilver flask and an orb of augmentation, and then you will get back a pair of runner's boots. And the sockets can change on this. Some other vendor recipes sockets don't change, but on this one they can, and I think this is an item level 13, so it doesn't normally have 4 sockets, so when I get this back it's probably going to be less than 4 sockets. Oh no, we managed to get it, so that's useful to know. But this is a great recipe if you have not managed to get hold of any movement speed boots. If you've got a lot of quicksilver flasks for some reason, that's not usually a scenario I find myself in, but it's really, really useful if you do. Another great recipe you can use during the campaign in order to make sure you're a little bit more tanky is a resistance ring. So you can get an iron ring. These drop relatively frequently. I usually have a couple of them by the time I hit Vaal. And whilst they do give 1 to 4 fizz damage to attacks, I think, and flat is great, but I think having a little bit of extra like cold resistance for Vaal is really, really useful. So I generally tend to vendor an iron ring along with a skill gem, and you get offered a lot of skill gems during the campaign. You find them all around, so you can trade in here an iron ring and a red skill gem, and this could be support or active skill gem, and you get a ruby ring. Now remember, there's a level requirement for ruby rings. It's level 16. It says here. You can do a topaz ring with the green skill gem, so you get, and that's level 12. And for a blue skill gem, you can get cold resistance, and that gives you that's a level requirement of 8. So you can absolutely have a couple of sapphire rings on by the time you get to Brutus, but Brutus is fizz damage. So 2 sapphire rings when you get to Vaal, really, really useful. It makes the encounter so much easier, and this is just a really, really great thing to do for the whole campaign. So really useful tip, and let's get into the next one. Alright, next up is added fizz damage to weapons. It's not flat fizz, it's % increased physical damage, and I think I've got the vendor wiki up here. So it's 40 to 84% increased fizz damage, and that depends on the rarity of your rustic sash. So you can get any weapon. We'll go over to Nessa here, and we're going to sell her this weapon, a blacksmith whetstone, and a rustic sash. And the rustic sash has to be either magic, rare, or unique, and you get a higher tier depending on if you have a magic, rare, or unique rustic sash. So adding this in will give us 43% increased fizz damage, which is in between 40 and 49%, and it doesn't change, so you can't just keep adding it or keep taking it out and adding it to get a slightly better version. And then if we regal this, or if we used, I don't know, if we had an essence that we used on it, then this will be slightly better. So let's just move that over there. So let's go over to Nessa now and sell this with a rare rustic sash. And you can see here we've got 58% increased fizz damage. And this is really, really good if you're leveling an attack-based build, especially if you're duelist or something like that. Then this is a really good way to upgrade your weapon each and every act. And I would recommend doing it every act. You can get a bit short on the whetstones, it's true, But if you find a whetstone and you haven't upgraded your melee weapon in that act, it's probably a good idea to do it with this recipe. Alright, this one's for the spell enthusiasts, so obviously a +1 weapon for spell casters is incredibly powerful. It's 15% more damage, and there is a recipe to make a +1 to level of whatever kind of spell skill gem weapon, a magic weapon, so you can augment it and then regal it if you wanted to, and it costs 40% quality gems with the same tag as the spell skill gem tag you're targeting, and a weapon, and that's it, a scoured weapon, so a regular weapon. So what that looks like is, we just go over talk to Nessa. So I have here 2 Ice Spear gems. They got 20% quality each, so that's 40% in total is what you need. You need 2 plus gems. Obviously you can't have 40% in one gem, so you just need 2 or more gems that total 40%. So you could have 4 gems with 10% each. They just need to have the same tag. So you see underneath the word Ice Spear here, it's got cold as a tag. So if I just chuck these in here, and a staff, you get a +1 level of all cold spell skill gems staff. This does not work with war staves, I just found out. Doesn't work. So you can't do it with war staves. You can do it with wands, so you get a +1 level of all cold spell skill gem wand. You can do it with rune daggers, and you can do it with scepters as well. And this works for cold, it works for lightning, it works for fire, it works for chaos, and it works for physical as well. So I think I've got some chaos gems here, and then look, we get a +1 level of all chaos spell skill gems staff there. So this is really, really useful if, I think, as it's 15% more damage per level of spell skill gems. This is super useful if you're getting towards the end game. You find a bunch of quality gems on the floor. I always pick up all quality gems because there's another recipe that we'll talk about in a minute. But I always pick them all up until I think around yellow maps, and then I change my filter to be only 10% quality plus that I start picking up, because there's a lot of 6 to 8% quality. It gets a little bit, my inventory gets a little bit full. Oops, stop that. So yeah, this is a really, really good recipe to boost your early mapping, especially if you have found a bunch of fire tag skill gems, you're playing Righteous Fire, something like that. Let's get on to the next one. And this next recipe is super useful when you're leveling and also when you're in maps. So this is going to be the bridge between the leveling and the mapping section. We're going to talk about Orbs of Chance and how important they are, but we can't do that without talking about 6-socket items. Now, 6-socket items, they trade when you go to a vendor, you will get 7 Jeweler's Orbs for these, and 7 Jeweler's Orbs really, really useful because you can just go and get 1 extra Jeweler's Orb here, and with 8 Jeweler's Orbs, you can go and buy. Oh, not in Lion Eye's watch, you can't. But with 8 Jeweler's Orbs, you can go to. Let's go to the epilogue. Let's go all the way to the epilogue, and you can trade those in for 2 fusings, and 1 fusing is enough for an Orb of Chance as well. So we can just go over here, and we've got fusings here. So I just pick these out, and then all our jewelers go away. And then we can take the Orbs of Chance wherever they are. Oh, they're just over here. So the Orbs of Chance, they only cost 1 fusing each. Not sure if you want to be using fusings for chances at the beginning of the league. It depends, right? But Chance Orbs, they're maps, so they're quite important. So anyway, let's get into the rest of the mapping section. All right, let's talk about sacrifice fragments very briefly. So if you have a fragments tab, then these are going to be here. If you chuck all 4 of these in the right configuration, then it opens a portal to Atziri. So it looks like this. So you got the facing inwards. This opens up a portal to Atziri, so the Apex of Sacrifice, and you can then go and defeat Atziri. You can try and get your slink boots or the really, really good amethyst flask that she has, or you could just take one of them, put it in the map device, activate it, and it'll open a Vaal side area. And Vaal side areas, so we're going to go to the Secluded Corpse. I think this is area 69. Yeah, it's monster level 69. You could just zoom through these pretty quickly. It's not, obviously you can only access this once you've gotten to maps anyway, because you need a map device for this. I don't think it works with the map device in Act 7. So once you get to the end here, we're just going to destroy all the monsters. There is a Vaal vessel, and this can be really useful for getting Vaal orbs and Vaal skills, especially if you're in sort of self-found. So you will always have a Vaal vessel at the end. This is a pretty good source of 6 links as well, to be honest. But this will also drop Vaal skills. So, oh, we've got Vanity. So, oh man, that would be really, really good at League launch to get a corrupted Tabby. But also we've got Vaal Detonate Dead over here. And then we've got Dash, which is pretty nice. So these are corrupted items that are inside here. So you can see the Serpent Wand here doesn't really show up on my loot filter, but it's also corrupted, even though it's just a normal item. So these Vaal side areas, really good for just a little boost, especially if you don't have one of your Vaal skills yet. It's a pretty useful way to get them, unless you're going to, in trade mode, you can just jump into the trade website and pick them up. But these Vaal side areas are pretty useful. Okay, it's time to start talking about the early mapping section. So first off, Orbs of Chance. You gotta have them. You gotta have Orbs of Chance. You will drop them throughout the campaign. Obviously, you're going to save every single one. They're so important because you can buy maps from Kirac from them. So you see these, the Spider Lair map. This is a tier 4. This one, Coral Ruins. They start off as Orbs of Chance. Eventually, they go into Alchemies and then Chaos. But the earlier stuff, I think some of them are also, Alchemies and Chance Orbs. So, and then eventually you get into just straight up costing Chaos per map. So these are super important. Picking them up during the campaign is really, 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 really important, because when you get stuck, or if you get stuck and with your map progression and you don't have any Kirac missions, I'm in standard, so I've got 1 or 2 Kirac missions, 1,687. Then you can come over to Kirac and you can just buy some maps straight up. And this is really, really useful to give yourself a kickstart. I use it all the time because I really, really want to generate a lot of Atlas passive skill points. If say you've bought everything in Kirac's window here, or everything, you can hold down Alt, and it will tell you if you've if you completed the map on the Atlas and if you've done the bonus objective. You only get the Atlas passive skill point if you've done the bonus objective. For white maps, you just have to use a transmute like this. For yellow maps, you have to run so it turns it into a magic map. For yellow maps, you have to run the map rare. So that means you have to alchemy it. You can binding orbit. You could chance orbit, but it's a terrible idea. You could use an essence on it, I guess, if you really want. I don't think you can actually use essences on maps. Don't do that. Use alks, use bindings. Bindings are very good at the very beginning of the league because it guarantees 4 linked sockets. So I would always err on the side of using alchemies if I can. And then bindings I reserve to either sell, because other players are buying them they cost more than alchemies if you want to buy binding orbs. I would always use alchemies, and alchemies you can use also to you can get alchemies from selling gear to vendors once you've identified it. So really important to have Orbs of Chance. If you've bought everything in Kirac's window, or you don't want anything that he's offering, then this Vaal Temple map, obviously this is super expensive at League launch, 8 Chaos, but you could sell it probably for 10. So if I didn't want any of these things, we can see here we've got a Vaal Temple map. You can just come over to the Kirac mission window and just select any of these, and it doesn't have to be like a red map, it could be like one of these. You can just go around and look, see if there's one that you've completed or not. That's what I usually do, because then I get a free map completion point. So you could just take this, and as soon as these portals open, now his vendor window has refreshed. So now there won't be that Vaal Temple map. It looks, it's a completely different one. Oh, this is always a really, really good early league pick. The Guardian's Challenge Shaper Guardian card. Because this is like a Forge of the Phoenix or Lair of the Hydra, one of those maps. You just need 4 of them, and it just costs 3 chisels. So these cost a lot early league. Like this is 4, 5C, something like that. They're really, really useful. So now you can see all of these have refreshed, and again, Orbs of Chance, Scroll of Wisdom, Orb of Chance. They cost Orbs of Chance. So let's talk about how to get some Orbs of Chance as well. All right, this recipe is called the Straight Flush recipe, and this is, it happens occasionally. It's not something I don't think you can count on, but if you find a unique item, say a belt like this, the Tactician or the Magnate, or don't do this with a Headhunter, but if you find, I don't know, a unique item like a unique iron ring or something like that, you can trade to the vendor a unique, rare, magic, and normal version of that item, and you will get 5 Orbs of Chance. So if we go over here to Lily, then these are all regular ones right now. So if I just use a crappy old essence on this, and then a transmute on this to turn it into a magic item, and then I put this unique, rare, magic, and normal in, then I get 5 Orbs of Chance. And this is a couple of maps early game. So I think if I found a unique during leveling, generally I'm putting them aside to do this, because 2 maps is nothing to sneeze at. It can be, it could be the difference between being able to progress or having to go back a tier of maps. So yeah, it's really useful. I hope you find it useful too. All right, let's talk about 3-to-1ing maps. So there is a vendor recipe where you can offer 3 maps of any tier, and you'll be offered 1 tier back higher. So if you have 3 tier 5 maps and you offer them to the vendor, they have to be the same one, then you'll get 1 tier 6 map back. So what does that look like? I've got a bunch of maze maps here, and I can just put 3 of these in, and we get a tier 15. These are tier 14. This is tier 15. This is how it works. It gets a little bit deeper though. So these maps, they have a specific combination on the server side. If I take this one out and put this one in, I get offered a different map. So it's if I put in the same 3 maps, I'll always get offered the same result. So if I keep doing this, I'll keep getting Foundry. But if I put in, this one and this one, then we get Grotto instead. So if you have a bunch of maps, and this works on any tier, so you can do, if you have 3 tier 1 strand maps, then you will be able to definitely get 1 tier 2 map. And if you have, 5 tier 1 strand maps, you'll be able to get offered several different things. So you get different outcomes. So then you can just, you can hold down Alt, like I said, and you can see if you've got the Atlas map is completed, if you've done it before, or if you've got the bonus objective. And the bonus objective, again, is how you get the Atlas passive skill points. All right, let's talk about Orbs of Horizon, and these are so powerful early game. It's one of the reasons I rush Harbinger straight away, is because Harbinger gives you Orbs of Horizon, which are, like I said, very powerful. It also gives you a ton of XP and a ton of maps as well. So Harbinger is really, really good. If you can handle Harbingers, it's really good to take early on. But they have another. It reforges a map as another of the same tier, and the same tier. What does that mean? I have here a cheat sheet for Orb of Horizon rolling. So all maps on the Atlas have a natural tier, and this is what those natural tiers look like. So you see over here for tier 14 maps on the right hand side, we've got Underground Sea, Maze, Canyon, Sunken City, and Carcass. And that means that if I get any T14 map, no matter what it is, even if it's like a T14 atoll, because we've got a bunch of Voidstone socketed, when I use an Orb of Horizons, it will always turn into either Underground Sea, Maze, Canyon, Sunken City, or Carcass. And we can just show this here. So here we go, Canyon, Underground Sea, Maze, Canyon, Carcass, Maze, Underground Sea, Sunken City. So if you are in your map tab on League Launch, and you come in here, and these little yellow bars, these tell you if you've completed the map or not. It's the Atlas bonus completion. Maybe you don't have the map tab. Maybe you're just using a dump tab to keep your maps in. I'd highly recommend this one. It's really, really good. Or you could just hold down Alt, and it tells you on the map. But if you're missing something on on one particular part of your Atlas, they'll be grayed out as well if you haven't done those maps. Then this is a really, really great way. Orbs of Horizons are super strong in the first few days, first few weeks of the league. They're still pretty strong now. So these are really, really useful, and I hope you spec Harbinger, because you get a lot out of it. All right, that's it for me and these recipes and these tips and tricks for helping you level through the campaign faster and getting into maps. I'm going to put up another video tomorrow with my league start plans, what kind of Atlas strategies I'm looking at, there's a little bit more testing involved, what kind of loot filter we're going to have, that kind of stuff. I really hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to put a link down below to the Lolcohol video for leveling through the campaign. Again, I cannot recommend it enough. It's really, really good. And I'll also put a link to this this cheat sheet here so that you can, I'm using Awakened PoE Trade for these overlays. So you can just, if you got Awakened PoE Trade running, which I hope you do because it's a really good tool, get Awakened PoE Trade, it's super useful. You can just click this edit button here and then you can choose a file and you can, I just took a screenshot of the cheat sheet. I think I'm going to make mine bigger. I got one for Sanctum, I got one for, for Betrayal. So I think I'm going to make this one a bit bigger. And I'll put it in the description below so you can have a look. If you think there's a vendor recipe that I've forgotten, then please put it in the comments because it's just going to help people. Maybe the Divine Orb and Flask one is not a great one to tell people about because it's not, I don't think Divine, you can get Divine Vessels by trading, I think it's 5 Flasks and a Divine Orb, but I don't think anybody's doing that vendor recipe anymore because Divine Orbs are quite expensive now. They weren't 8 months ago or so. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you're kind to everyone you meet. I love you all very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.